I love board games, but they can often be quite hard to get into. Reading a rulebook doesn't help show the mechanics functioning on the board itself, and a lot of tutorials explain the rules separately from the game, which for me doesn't really help me grasp the game very well. With that in mind, I want to make tutorial videos that would personally help me understand the mechanics of the game. A live explanation of the rules in a mock playing of the game. This is a series I'll be doing called Dice Dungeon, with two types of Dice Dungeon videos, tutorials and gameplay. You can expect to see videos of this appearing more often. But for now, let's get into learning about Root. Root is an extremely asymmetric tabletop wargame. I would say closer to Risk than Warhammer in the style of wargame that it is. Root pits different factions of tiny critters against each other for dominance over the forest floor. Root is an amazing board game with an adorable art style and extremely unique mechanics. In fact, the uniqueness of each faction and how they play completely differently than other factions is one of the biggest draws of Root. Some factions are better than others, purely from a mechanical standpoint. That doesn't stop them all from being fun in their own ways. In this video, I'll be explaining the core 4 factions and the general mechanics of Root. In future videos, I'll further explain the additional factions and content of Root. I play using Tabletop Simulator, so a degree of the setup is done for me, but I'll show every faction setup as much as I can. And for the record, if you yourself are interested in playing Root, Tabletop Simulator is one really good way of playing it, but the physical board game is amazing as well, and there is an online video game version. Now for going over the specific rules and explaining how all the factions work, we'll move from the pre-recorded intro to my live teaching. I'll be explaining the core mechanics and how all the factions play through basically running through the game in motion. I'll manually show some of the setup of the core 4 factions, just doing the 4 from the base game, and I will be basically explaining the rules as we go. I will not be, reading out the book for you, because if you wanted to learn the rules via simply reading the book, you can easily find PDFs of it, or if you're on Tabletop Simulator, they're all right there. With that in mind, I will go over the basic setup of each faction as in order as we go through their turns, explain how their mechanics work, how the theming of their faction, so on and so forth. To start with, we have Marquise the Cat. Pre-recorded Sino here to give you a better overview of the factions. Marquise the Cat is an invasive group of cats that have taken over the forest from the previous avian rulers. They wish to exploit the forest for its abundant wood to fuel their military-industrial complex. They're all about building up structures to run their empire in a more standard strategy game style. To set up their faction on the board, once you have your board laid out, you pick one of the 4 corners to put down your keep. Your keep is not a building. It does not go into one of the building slots. In this case, I'll just pick this top corner here. Then you go ahead and pick these 3 buildings from the leftmost slot of each, the sawmill, the workshop, and the recruiter, and you can put them anywhere on your board that you want. Now, do keep in mind that as you go, for example, putting down your workshops are used for crafting card effects. And with that in mind, you want your workshops to be in slots that allow you to use the card effects. In this case, the cards aren't very great for any early crafting, so in that case we'll just put the recruiter, say, in here. However, you can only build where you rule. The upside of being Marquise the Cat is Marquise the Cat starts the game ruling just about everything. They have a cat in every single clearing, aside from the one directly opposite of them. So in this case, we'll put the workshop in this slot, the bunny slot. We'll put the recruiter a bit more down towards the one place that the Eerie Dynasty can fill. And we'll put the sawmill, our basically resource creator, over here where it's safest. Pretty simple. And then, for the last bit of setup, they get one extra cat wherever their keep is. Now then, we'll go on to the Erie Dynasty, the birds that used to rule. Pre-record Cena back again, here to describe the Erie Dynasty better this time. The forest has 4 types of creatures that make up the main bulk of the population. The foxes, the mice, the bunnies, and lastly, the birds. The birds used to rule over everything, oppressing the other types of creatures from their treetops, and following a very traditional, rigid system. After losing everything in a moment of weakness to the cats, they wished to reclaim their former glory by force. They set up roosts, and they have, unlike the cats that have a permanent keep that is irreplaceable, the birds are a bit more mobile. They can appear and disappear when needed. Their roosts are important, but they are not special. But they do get 1 roost in the opposite clearing, and they get 6 birds to start with there. So they start not spread out, but with a very strong, close-knit force. Now, they function a bit differently than the Marquise de Cat, who only gets 3 actions every turn. They have, in theory, almost unlimited actions, but their actions are done through decrees, promises, things they have to upkeep that will slowly mount and mount and mount until they can't keep up with it anymore, in which case they will fall into turmoil, their leader will be ousted, and a new leader will be placed. In this case, I'm going to pick the charismatic leader, but you'll start with 4 leaders and you choose which one you want to take over. Whichever one you pick, you will then put your viziers down, these 2 cards, your loyal viziers, into whatever slot your leader says. In this case, recruit, and battle. So what this means, actually I'll explain that a little bit more later. This is just the setup. Pretty plain and simple. You get your 3 cards as well to your hand. Oh boy, guess who actually forgot to explain the faction at all? That's right, me. Pre-record Cena, back at it again. The Woodland Alliance is made up of the foxes, the mice, the bunnies that the various suits and clearings are populated by. They are the people rising up from their oppressors, both the old rulers of the Erie and the new invaders of the Marquise. The Woodland Alliance is already set up. Not joking, that's all they need. All you do is you put down 3 cards to put down into your sympathy, or your supporter rather, your supporter slot right here. You fill your sympathy spots with these tokens here. You fill your base slots with these bases here, and you're done. You are ready to go. Of course, you do get your own 3 cards to start with. And lastly, the Vagabond. Now, the Vagabond functions the most differently than any of the other factions. They aren't a faction, to be entirely honest. They are just a single person. In this case, I'm playing the Thief, because I believe it's the most basic to show off. But there are different types of Vagabonds you can play as, and depending on what scenario, what rulings you have, you can in theory have even 2 Vagabonds if you want to. Some people would lose their mind at the idea of 2 Vagabonds, but some people enjoy it. It's up to you. Some people despise the Vagabond, some people love the Vagabond. It depends. That's up to you. Now, the Vagabond starts with whatever there's like this. Do not separate force. So this here is 1 forest, is not too different. This is a different forest. This is 1 forest. This is 1 forest. This is 1. This is, I don't think this is technically 1. This is 1. This is 1. And this is 1. So, put them wherever you want. I think this is a fine space because this is between all of the runes. and runes are very important for the vagabond. Now going through, this item, for example, goes up here. They can refresh more items per turn, but we'll get to that later. And that is all of the setup for every faction. Now, you will go ahead and take your die and decide on the starting player. In this case, Marquise the Cat. That is fine by me. So, every turn in the game is separated into three categories. There's birdsong, daylight, and evening. In all honesty, these don't technically mean anything, but they help break up the actions and makes everything a bit more clear on when it's happening. Birdsong you always do first. In this case, place 1 wood at each of the sawmill. Wood is your currency as Marquise the Cat. You need wood to do anything. Oh, sorry, you don't need it to do anything. You need it to make buildings, and buildings decide everything for Marquise the Cat. Now, as Marquise the Cat, in your daylight action, you first can choose to craft any of your cards by using the workshop. I'll explain crafting now. If you look at these cards, up here they have a suit. This represents what the card is tied to. However, this does not represent the crafting. Instead, only here and here matter for crafting. In this case, to craft it, you need, for Marquise the Cat anyway, 3 workshops in the mouse area, in the bunny districts. So for example, you could have, if this rune got taken away, or we'll go up here. If, for example, you had 2 workshops in here and another workshop down here, that would be viable to then craft it. It would take a bit of time to do, but depending on the card, it could very well be worth it. And you also have cards like these that require one workshop in each. Furthermore, there are 2 different types of backgrounds for these crafted cards. There are these what's called wooden backgrounds, these more tan, whitish backgrounds. These mean they are used and then they go away. They're just one-time uses. So for example, this one you would use and every enemy in a bunny clearing would go away and you discard the card. Stone cards, these gray backgrounds, they stay. So for example, these become improvements that you would put, for example, here and keep for the entire game, and you can use whenever you wish. In this case, once per daylight, you could remove one of your warriors to draw a card. Gives you just more cards to play with. Certain factions would love that, certain factions wouldn't care about that. Once you deal with your crafting phase, you can now take up 3 actions, plus an extra action per bird card that you spend. I mentioned every card had a suit. These suits decide a lot depending on the faction, and they are all tied to suits on the board. Rabbit, fox, mouse. Rabbit, fox, mouse. However, there is a 4th suit, the birds. The birds are wild cards. They function differently depending on what faction you are and the various mechanics of the faction, but in general, one thing is almost always true. They are a wild card. They can act as if they were any other faction suit. And in this case, Marquise the Cat gets to get an extra action when they spend those cards. Or via overworking. You can take up to 3 actions on your second aspect of daylight. You cannot do these in either order that you want to. You have to first craft and then take your 3 actions. You have the choice of battling, which we'll probably get into on the Eerie Dynasty's turn. But you can battle in any place that you want to. You cannot move and then battle without taking 2 actions. Just battle if there are ongoing stalemates in any of the clearings. You can march, which in Marquise the Cat's case, you take 2 moves.
So for example, you could go here and then here, or you could go here and then take both of them into here, or you can make them entirely separated. Move this one into here and move this one down here, as long as it's 2 different move actions. However, you cannot break up the move action with doing another thing. So for example, if you had this, once in daylight, you may remove 1 warrior and draw a card. You could not, for example, move here, activate that, and then move again. You have to make your 2 moves, and then do whatever you want, or do whatever you want, and then make your 2 moves. Recruit, that's pretty simple. You put 1 warrior down at every recruiter. That obviously will build up as you make more recruiters, hence why that's something you might want to do over the sawmill or the workshop, even though those are very important as well. You can build. In a clearing that you rule, which I'll explain rule real quick, rule means you own the clearing. How rule is calculated is for every piece that you have, be it warrior, building, token, so on, in a clearing, that adds up for 1 additional point towards your rule. As long as you have 1 piece and there's nothing else there, you rule it. Now, if there's a tie, normally that would mean neither side rule unless they have some kind of mechanic. For example, the Erie Dynasty, in a tie, they rule it. To build, you will spend a wood to put down a building. So in this case, I could say spend this wood up here to put down another sawmill, because I want more wood on my following turn so I can do more. That would allow you to build, and by revealing this little number down here, I get 1 victory point, bringing me up 1 towards the goal of 30. That is the whole goal of the game, victory points. It's not like Risk where, you know, you can win by taking over the whole world or anything like that. There's always a mechanic to keep every player in the game. You cannot outright remove someone from the game. They'll always be coming back. The only way to win is to get 30 victory points or play a dominance card. When you have at least 10 points in the game, you can play down a dominance card during your daylight phase, which removes your score marker completely from the score table, and instead it changes your requirement to win. The most common dominance card is Rule 3 of the clearings of 1 matching suit. So for example, in this case, rule 3 mouse clearings, and then you win. There are 4 mouse clearings on the map, so as you can see, that's not easy, but it's also could be more viable in certain cases if you're behind on points. Obviously, the reason why you need to be at score 10 to do it is so that Marquise the Cat can't turn 1 completely win the game, because they currently own literally all 4 of the mouse districts. Just as an example. And then lastly, last thing you can do is overwork. You can spend a card to place 1 wood at a sawmill matching that clearing's suit. So for example, if I wanted to put an extra wood at this clearing, because I already spent that wood, I could discard this, put another wood here, and now, in total, I've spent 2 actions, 2 out of my 3 actions. I've built a workshop, I've overclocked, and now I will take my last action to put down another recruiter, scoring me 1 more victory point, and spending this last wood. This recruiter will go right here. Now then, in the evening, you will draw 1 card, plus an additional card per this little wildcard symbol that is showing. Currently, no wildcard symbols are showing, but those are given from certain building slots. In this case, at the recruiter's 2nd slot, you get 1. At the recruiter's 3rd, at the 3rd slot, at the 5th slot, and I think that's it. I think just the recruiter tree gives those. But that'll let you draw more cards, which will let you do more things, for example, crafting. But we'll get into crafting and items in a little bit. Surely, one of these factions will be able to. So, the Erie Dynasty does not have the same action limit. They can do as many actions as they want, presuming they put down their decrees. There's a balance to this, because the more decrees you have, the more promises you have to upkeep, the more chance of turmoil. If your hand is empty, you draw one card during Birdsong. You always want to have cards in your hand as the Erie Dynasty. Actually, sorry, I'm dumb. Let me quickly go over the special mechanics of Marquise the Cat. They have 2 special mechanics. One, they have the keep. The reason why the keep is important, only you can place pieces in the clearing with the keep token, is, for example, we'll get into this a bit later, but the Woodland Alliance, they can put their sympathy, in theory, in any clearing. Except here. They can't do that because the keep is there. The keep can be destroyed, and if the keep is destroyed, it is gone forever. The reason why that's even worse is because Marquise the Cat's second special mechanic is the Field Hospital. Anytime in battle a Marquise warrior is removed, sorry, not even in battle, just at all, you can spend a card matching the clearing that they were removed in to put that warrior back in the clearing with the keep token. So they have a bit of a harder time getting their troops because they require the recruiters, so in exchange, it's a bit harder for them to lose their troops. That is one of the only things that keeps them viable compared to Erie Dynasty, which can produce troops basically whenever they want to by just putting a decree in the recruit slot. With that in mind, let's get into the Erie Dynasty. They are the lords of the forest. Any clearing that they are tied in presence for, they rule. They also have a disdain for trade. When crafting items, they only score 1 point. What do I mean by that? For example, if I want to craft this sword, it will give Marquise the Cat, for example, 2 victory points. For the Erie Dynasty, it would only give them a single victory point, no matter what. They still can craft all they want, they just gain a little bit less from it because it's a little bit easier for them to do. Again, what are items for? For every other faction, they're really just for victory points and for getting cards from the Vagabond. Most factions don't actually have a use for the items. That does mean most games, it will feel like something's a little bit missing without the Vagabond, but honestly, the Vagabond's not required in any degree. Now then, like I said, if their hand is empty, they will draw a card at the beginning of the Birdsong because they always need cards to put down into their decree. Their second action of their Birdsong is to add 1 or 2 cards to the decree, but only 1 can be of the bird suit. This is because the bird suit is one of the strongest suits for the decree, as that does not tie them to have to do things in certain clearings. If they could only put down bird decrees, they would be perfectly fine. This just forces them to put down a little bit more alternate cards. They have to always put down 1, but they can put down 2 if they want to, but it's a little bit risky too. If they have no roosts on the map, you place a roost and 3 warriors in a clearing with the fewest total warriors. As mentioned, you cannot be fully out of the game. It's not a thing you can be, because that would just be unfun. No one wants to get knocked out early and just sit waiting for their friends to finish the game. So in this case, you're never out of the game. You might be behind on victory points, but you could always put down a dominance card and go for a different kind of win. That's one of the things I love about Root so much, is you're never down and out. Now, the birds wish to retake their birthright. And to do so, during daylight, they will craft whatever they can using their roosts, basically Similarly to the Marquise de Cat, they craft by having roosts in the various suits equal to whatever it says down here. For example, if you want Cobbler at the start of evening, you may take a move. That's actually very good. You would require 2 roosts in bunny areas. So if I wanted to go after this as Marquise de Cat, as the Eerie Dynasty, don't know why Marquise de Cat is on the line, I would probably want to head all the way over here because everything around me is mice or fox. Let's start off by actually doing the bird song. Let's put down a decree. In this case, let's have a decree for sorry, not that. Let's have a decree for the cobbler. So what do these decrees actually entail? In this slot, whatever you put down here, based on their suit, you'll recruit in a matching clearing with a roost. So in this case, I will recruit in any... Actually, I'd put down both of these as my decrees. In this case, I would put down a single warrior in any clearing I wanted to with a roost, because it's a wild card, followed by putting down a warrior in any bunny clearing I want with a roost. I only have one, so I put it there. Now, I move from a matching clearing, not 2. So, in this case, I put down a bunny card into the move slot because I want to move my people out from the bunny slot. I will want to, however, keep people in this bunny clearing, as next turn, I'm going to have to do that again. That never goes away. From now on, I've promised I will always move troops from a bunny slot. From a bunny clearing. Sorry, keep saying slot. Clearing. So in this case, I think I'm going to move all of these birds into this mouse clearing. And now, we battle. We battle in a matching clearing. So since I have a wild card here, I can battle in any clearing that I desire, but I have to battle in a clearing or I fail to do my decrees. In this case, we have one here. Sorry, I also made a second mistake. Rewind a little bit. When I was recruiting, I forgot to add my leader's mechanic. Every leader is special because they have a little mechanic here. I have the charismatic leader. He places down 2 warriors, not 1, each time you recruit. So because I recruited twice, I would have 2 more warriors here, which I would probably have moved into here. Sorry about that. My mistake. Now then. Battle. How battling works. When you want to battle, you will be rolling these dice. The attacker will roll both dice. They will pick the higher of the 2 dice to be their number. The defender will take the lower number. You can, and these will be how many hits you've done, how many warriors of the other person's you kill. These happen at the same time, so there's no like retroactive thing like, oh, but I killed your 1 warrior first, so that warrior won't deal its hit. But you can only hit equal to as many troops as you have. So in this case, even if Marquise de Cat got a 3 on their roll, they would only be able to hit once. There's some other mechanics like defenseless, which that is technically retroactive, but we'll get into that later when that comes up. The other thing is ambushes. As mentioned, the attacker takes the higher number, which means the attacker gets the advantage. Unlike Risk, for example, where the defender gets the advantage. That is because the defender has a different way of turning the odds. That is with ambush cards. Now, how ambush cards work is they are used before the start of a battle. The defender can put down their ambush card to immediately deal 2 hits to the attacker, and then it is discarded. The attacker can counter an ambush by playing their own matching ambush. However, you can only put down an ambush card if it matches the clearing on both sides. So if you're the defender and you want to defend, for example, from here, you would need this exact kind of ambush card. Sadly, that is in the hands of the Eerie Dynasty, not Marquise the Cat. But if someone wanted to counter that, they would need their own ambush card of the same suit. Sorry, I forgot to put down the Vagabond's cards. But now we can get into the battle. We'll start the fight here, where we got 3 and 3. The larger number is picked by the attacker. They're the same number though. So they will kill 3 of the Marquise the Cat. They only have 1, so only 1 is taken. Marquise the Cat only had 1 token as well, so only 1 of the birds are taken. And now they have taken over this place. In theory, the Eerie Dynasty, if they wanted to, could have put down their ambush card here into the build slot. Just quickly cutting in to say that is half true what I said. If I didn't put down the second bunny card in the recruit slot, then I could put down that ambush card into the build. Just remember, you can only put down a maximum of 2 decrees in the birdsong phase, because they knew that they were going to move into here and battle here. In fact, that probably would have been the best idea. Let's say that they did do it, because I would like to show this aspect of the game real quick. When they finish their battle phase, they will go on to their build phase. If they have any cards in there, they will try to build a roost in the matching clearing. In this case, they do have a matching clearing, so they can build that roost. Honestly, the build slot is kind of the thing that often most causes turmoil. It's the thing that they have the hardest time keeping up with, because this now means every single turn they have to put a roost into a mouse district. So now they have to go here next turn, they have to take this, they have to also prepare to take this, and then they have to take this. So clearly it's a bit hard to keep up with, and that's what causes their turmoil, but we'll get to that later. Now that we've resolved all of the decree, we will go on to their evening. They will score victory points equal to the rightmost card on their roost track. In this case, if they had only 1 roost down their starting roost, they would get 0 points. They have 1, so they get 1 point. Now they'll go ahead and draw a card. They get a card per wildcard symbol showing, which the wildcard symbol is under the roosts. That is something that they want to get. In this case, they just get another bird card. That'll be very useful for the future for them. Now, the Woodland Alliance. They are one of my favorite factions because they work so uniquely. They don't work like any other faction. To be fair, none of the factions work like any other faction. It's kind of the point of the game. How the Woodland Alliance works is they are completely off the board to start with. They have to build up the right to be on the board by causing riots and revolts and spreading a sympathetic view across the woodland to make the various critters rise up. The foxes, the rabbits, the mice. How the Woodland Alliance works is they function off of outrage. Whenever a player removes one of these sympathy tokens that they can put down, they get a card that matches the clearing from the person who removed the sympathy token from their hand, and that gets put into their supporter deck. Same thing, if they move any warriors into a sympathetic clearing, they also get a matching card to that same clearing suit, and it goes into their supporter deck. If the other player cannot give them this card, they show their whole hand to the Woodland Alliance player, not only to, prove that they can't do it, but also to give the Woodland Alliance player some more information, which then they can use as they please. And then they draw a card and add it to their supporter deck. Secondly, the Woodland Alliance is good at guerrilla warfare. When battling, they use the higher number as the defender, and they use the attacker gets the lower number. All cases, they will be rolling higher than the other player. This is to make up for the fact that they have a harder time recruiting and acting. Now then, we'll go through their flow of playing. First of all, they can choose to revolt if they want to. They can do this by spending 2 supporter cards that match a sympathetic clearing. So a clearing with one of these sympathy tokens on it. When they do that, they remove every single enemy piece there. That's pretty big. That can be used to basically completely erase a massive army. For example, here, if there's a sympathy token there and they were ready to revolt, all of that could go away. That's pretty scary. The Woodland Alliance might seem weak, but they can do a lot when given the space to. Once you do that, you can place one of these matching bases on that clearing and get a number of warriors equal to the amount of sympathetic clearings of the same suit that is on the map. So for example, if they had sympathetic clearing here, another one here, and they revolted, they would get 2 warriors on here. Or if they only had that one, they would only get a single warrior. Now, revolts, that mechanic of revolts might make you want to wait. Wait and wait and wait for revolts until you have a sympathy in every clearing of the same type. But that's not always for the best. You can do that, and it would be big if you do that, but the thing about that is revolts and sympathy are very expendable. They can crush your revolt as much as they want to. You can just revolt again. All it takes is more supporter cards. But we'll get into that in a second. Now, since we can't revolt at all, we look to spread sympathy. We can look at our supporter deck. And any number of times we wish to in this turn, we can spend these supporters to put down a sympathy on the same suit as the cards we spend. It must match the same target clearings suit, and we have to spend as many cards as on here, as you can see, it would take to put down. So for example, right now, I could put down 1 supporter in a fox clearing, 1 supporter in a mouse clearing, and 1 supporter in a bunny clearing, which, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. However, next time, if I want to put down sympathy in any clearing, we require 2 cards to do that. So let's go put these down where we feel they might be needed. Well, we know these places are going to get some activity, so we're going to place down sympathy where we think a lot will happen. We'll go ahead and place down them there. These get discarded because we use them up to spread sympathy. I made a mistake. I put down 2 tokens into 2 different fox clearing. One of those should have been in a bunny clearing. Just make sure you're putting down your token into the same type of clearing as the card. And now we are out of supporters. However, because we've revealed the victory point numbers onto the sympathy tokens, we get that amount of victory points. So in this case, we get 2. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is martial law. You must spend an additional matching supporter if the target clearing has at least 3 warriors of another player. So if I wanted to put a card here for one of my 1 sympathy, 1 supporter cost sympathy tokens, I would require putting down 2 mouse supporter cards because they have martial law currently going. They are oppressing the people. Because we are the people. We are the Woodland Alliance. We're the people. Now, in our daylight phase, we can craft using our sympathy. So our sympathy basically, if we have a sympathetic clearing matching what's on the card and the same number as matching on the card, we can craft it. In this case, why not craft both of these? we're going to craft the armorers, getting this upgrade here. In battle, we may discard this to ignore all rolled hits. That's pretty big. And we'll also craft a visit to friends. So we put this away, we get 1 victory point, because that is what is listed on the card. And from here, this pool of items that are very limited, we take a boot. If there are no more boots up there, you can no longer craft a boot. That is it. You cannot get the victory points from crafting, you can't get the boot either. Now then, we can mobilize any cards from our hand into our supporter stack, in this case, but it's currently useless to us anyway. So we're going to mobilize that. We're going to put that away. And the Woodland Lions, for the record, they don't have a limit on their actions, they just have a limit on their choices. So they can make as many actions as they want, it's just there isn't a lot of choices. You can also train. You can spend a card from your hand to put a that is matching a built base, to put one of your warriors into your officer box. Right now that doesn't make sense to us because we don't have any bases, so we completely ignore that for the time being. On to the evening, military operations. Ignore this entirely currently. We have no bases, we have no military, we can't do any of this. Secondly, we draw a card, plus an additional card per a matching wildcard token, which is not on the sympathy track. They are under bases. The more bases you have, the more cards you draw. In this case, we just draw 1 card, another dominance card. This time for having 3 different fox clearings by the start of the birdsong phase. Let's real quick mention how does dominance work as the vagabond. They can't rule clearings, so they can't do dominance cards, because all dominance cards are clearing based. So instead, if a vagabond wants to use a dominance card, they instead form a coalition. This can only be done in a game of 4 or more, but when a vagabond forms a coalition, they again still have to have 10 points to do so first. They pick the player with the lowest amount of victory points. Pick the player with the lowest amount of victory points. If there's a tie, the vagabond can get to choose which one they want to form the coalition with. And now the vagabond cannot win through victory points. They simply, in fact, can't win on their own at all. The vagabond wins only if the player currently in last place wins. So now the vagabond's only goal is to help that player, to ensure that that player comes out on top. Very interesting way of playing. Certain heroes actually really like coalitions for the vagabond. I think it's called the Arbiter. It's a very fight-heavy type of vagabond. They love coalitions. They love just basically being a hero for a certain player, but that is how the vagabond's coalitions work. Speaking of vagabond, it is now the vagabond's turn. The vagabond does not get actions in the same way as any other person. Sorry, a little yawn there. How the vagabond's actions work is based on their items. They can only take the same actions as their items say that they can. They are nimble. They can move regardless of rule. I should actually explain that real quick. You can only move based on your rule. What I mean by that is you can either move from a place you rule or to a place you rule. You cannot move from a place you don't rule to a place you don't rule. One of the 2 sides you have to own. So for example, birds can move here. That's completely legal. The birds can move here. That is completely legal. However, what the birds cannot do is go from this place to this place. They can't just keep going further back into enemy lines. They have to rule one of the 2 places that they are either going from or to. Except for the vagabond. Vagabond doesn't care about that because they can't rule places. The vagabond is a lone wanderer. He is not a warrior. So for example, for sympathy of the Woodland Alliance, they do not count for the when a warrior moves into a sympathetic clearing. And they also cannot be removed from the map. They will always be on the map. If an effect is supposed to remove them from a clearing or from the map entirely, they ignore it. At the start of their turn, they refresh 3 items. They can refresh 2 additional items per T that they have in these slots. What I mean by refresh is when you use an item, they become exhausted, and they cannot be used until they are refreshed. Now, they can slip. It's basically a free movement. Every turn they get one free movement. However, they can... yes, they get one free movement. This can either be into a clearing, between clearings, or into a forest. They are one of the... I don't even think one of the... I think they are the only character who can go into the forest. The forests are too dangerous for the average little critter. We'll have him go ahead and slip into this place. Let me actually real quick put down these. The Vagabond is a little special in how his relationship with the other factions work. His relationship with factions depend on how much he aids them or if he hurts them. But we'll probably get to that a little bit later. Now that he's slipped, we go to his daylight. He can do as he pleases by using up his items. In this case, sorry, before I forget, another thing you have to do with Vagabond is show the quests. You have this deck of quests here that you will list out 3 different options. These quests will each be tied to a suit of clearing, and they will have a job for you that will require you to exhaust certain items in that clearing to complete. For example, in a rabbit clearing, exhaust a tea and a boot to draw 2 cards and get 1 victory point, and then add the completed quest here, which then will stack up more and more victory points for completing the quest. That is one of the many ways the Vagabond can win. Essentially, there's different styles of win condition Vagabond can go for. For example, fighting. They can fight different people to gain victory points from killing. Or they can ally a faction and start to feed them cards to get victory points as well. To start with though, now that he's slipped into this clearing, we're going to use his explore action. By expending this torch, he gains 1 victory point, and he gets to take the item from this ruin. Normally, in a normal game, on the back of the ruin token, there'll be an item. In this case, because it's Tabletop Simulator, instead, let me just change its state, and he gets a hammer. That is amazing. That is an amazing start. The hammer is a very rare and very important item, which that gives us another thing that we can possibly do. In this case, craft. The hammer can be used to repair damaged items or craft new items, which is big for the Vagabond because that gives him victory points and also gives him more items to use. In this case, let's go ahead and exhaust that to get a gently used knapsack, a little bag here, which increases the limit to how many items he can have in his satchel, because if he doesn't have enough items in his satchel, he has to get rid of items. It's very important. Next, I'm going to exhaust the boot to go ahead and move to a... Sorry, he spends that and gets 1 victory point because he got the knapsack. Now we're going to spend that and start heading towards a bunny clearing. So we're going to go over here. Wonderful. And that's about it. He could attack, but that would make him immediately hostile with a faction, which some characters would like to do, honestly. But early on, it might not be the best idea, because when you are hostile with a faction, you have to spend an additional boot to move into a hostile clearing. That's ruled by a hostile faction. You become hostile by removing a piece in battle during your turn. However, when you are hostile with a player, you will score 1 point anytime that you remove a piece from another player that you're already hostile with. So you can start gaining points by just fighting, which is some people's preferred playstyle. To show off real quick though, another mechanic of this game, you can aid another player. The main reason why you would want to aid another player is to get an item from them. When you aid a player, you give them a card matching the clearing that you're in, and you also have to be in a clearing with one of their cards. In this case, we're in a fox clearing with a Woodland Alliance person. I'm going to exhaust my sword as to give them this card, this fox card here. Hand over to them, and I get their boot as a additional item for me. I'm not going to use that right now though, because I don't need to. However, because I've aided them, I also bring them up one in my relationship with them, which gives me 1 victory point because we brought him over there to the slot with 1 victory point listed. When you aid a player, unless they're hostile, you will move them up right once on the relationship table if you've given them enough cards equal to what is listed. So now if I want to bring the Woodland Alliance up in my allyship again, I have to give them 2 cards in 1 turn. Then I have to give them 3 cards in 1 turn, and once they're allied, anytime I give them aid, I score 2 points, no matter what. I believe you can aid a player without getting a card back, which is one of the most common ways for a vagabond to basically win. Once they're up towards here, they just ally another player and start dumping cards into them until they win, and I don't think a player can refuse aid, which is why a bit later into the game, when the vagabond's close to winning, you might want to start attacking the vagabond. You can't get the vagabond out of the game, but if he doesn't have items to exhaust, if you break his items, he won't be able to give cards. So that's one of the ways to deal with the vagabond. But for someone like Marquise de Cat, battling takes an action. Same thing with something like the Underground Duchy, but we'll get to them in a future video. So it's also not always worth it to attack the vagabond because he might not be doing enough. Nonetheless, we've done his daylight phase. We'll go on to the evening. If he's in a forest, he can spend the evening repairing his items if he has any damaged items. Otherwise, you draw a card plus an additional card per coin stack item you own. And then you go ahead and discard down to having 5 cards in your hand if you have more. We don't, so we ignore that. And then we remove items in our satchel until we are down to 6 items, or unless we have other bags, which then we get 2 more items per bag. So in this case, we can have 8 items. We only have 5 items, so either way, we're good. For the record, if a card has 2 or more symbols for crafting, they require additional hammers to do so. So in this case, it needs to be in a bunny clearing with 2 hammers to craft that. Which I'm not sure there is even 3 hammers in the game. I know there's 2. I don't think the vagabond can craft things with 3 symbols, but so that is a full round of the game. I will continue to go through a little bit quicker now without explaining everything in nearly as much depth. I will go over, let's say, 2 more rounds to just give more of an example of the game in motion, and then I will start to wrap up. So, Marquise de Cat, we will place 1 wood at every sawmill. We have 2 sawmills, so we get 2 wood. Then we craft with our workshops if we have workshops in areas of that type. We do not, so we can continue on from there. Now we can take 3 actions. The birds are starting to move in, so I'm going to recruit. So we put down a token at every recruiter. Now we are going to, I think, start working on crafting a little bit. We're going to take 1 wood to put down a workshop. So I realized, was I scoring victory points properly? Yes, I was. So we get 2 more victory points because we're putting down a workshop. We'll put down the workshop right over here. Then we are going to... So that was 2 actions now. Let's use our last action to just recruit more, honestly. Alright. And now we draw. And that is the end of Marquise the Cat's turn. Not a super complex turn, just crafting and preparing defenses a little bit. This side's a little undefended, but Marquise the Cat has kind of the issue of being spread around. They can pump out troops in a single turn, and their troops are very sticky. Because again, field hospital, if they die, they can come back over there if the player wants them to. But that is their downside is they have to work around their buildings a little bit. Erie Dynasty's turn. Their hand is not empty, so no drawing. They have to add 1 card to their decree, so we'll go ahead and add this bird to their move decree. So now we go ahead and recruit 2 on any slot we wish. And now we recruit 2 on on any bunny slot that we wish. Again, reminder, we get 2 warriors because we have a charismatic leader. Now we can move from any slot we wish and from bunny slots. Sorry, clearings, I keep calling them slots. We move from bunny clearings and any clearing. In this case, let's move these ones to this clearing. Uh-oh. We moved into a mouse clearing. So that means the mouse player gets a card from us because of their outrage. For the record, it's only when a warrior is moved into a sympathetic clearing, not when they are recruited into. So that's why the Marquise de Cat did not have to give them anything. They have no cards though. They put it all in their decrees, so whoops. Didn't mean to show that. Doesn't really matter though, in this case. They get a card straight from the deck, which they will get another card straight from the deck because with the second move, we're going to move these 3 into here. Now then, battle. We only have 1 card in the battle, so we can only fight 1 battle at a time. We're going to battle here because we have to build in a mouse clearing, or else we will go into turmoil. So we'll go ahead and start the battle now. 2. So, 2 and 2. They lose. Actually, real quick, let me check something. They do not have an ambush card, that's fine. The Marquise de Cat loses 2 tokens, so does the birds. However, now they have a tie for ruling, which means the birds rule this place, even though they have a building down. And because the birds rule this place, they can build a keep. Sorry, a roost. They had nothing to craft, they've resolved their decrees, and now they will score 2 victory points and draw 2 cards, 1 from their standard and 1 because they have a wild card symbol revealed. Again, normally you would keep your cards in your hand. I'm just putting them down next to them because it makes it easier to tell whose cards are who when we're doing this simulated game. For the record, if you do want to play solo or cooperative, so on and so forth, there is a add-on that lets you have basically players who are auto-controlled to a degree. They have like a very simple mechanics that run themselves, and you would basically play them out through what it says to do. But we're not doing that right now because that would teach basically a different faction, and we don't want to teach that right now. Woodland Alliance. They got their additional outrage. We're all good. So they can revolt if they want to, which there could actually be a reason to. There's a lot of enemies here, a lot of enemies here, a lot of enemies here. I think here is where they might revolt if they have 2 mouse cards. Let's take a look at their supporters. They do not. They can only revolt in here or in here. In that case, I think it might be worthwhile to revolt in here as to, in theory, stop the Erie dynasty from being able to prevent their turmoil. But that's presuming the Woodland Alliance wants to revolt. For the sake of showing revolt, I'm going to have them revolt. So, go ahead and discard these 2 supporters. All of the pieces, except for the sympathy, I believe you keep the sympathy, and the rune, goes away. Because we cleared a building, a token, a non-warrior token from the board, we get 1 victory point. In normal route, basically anything that's a cardboard token, basically anything that isn't like standing up, anything that's like just a little square of cardboard, is a piece that will give you a victory point for getting rid of. So sympathy, you get a victory point for getting rid of. Keeps, you get a victory point for getting rid of. Buildings, you get a victory point for getting rid of, so on and so forth. Just not warriors. Unless, for example, you're a vagabond who's currently hostile. But we got rid of that. We now have a fox base down. And because we had only a single sympathetic fox clearing, we get only a single warrior guarding the space. Alright. And now we can craft using sympathy. Anything we want to craft? I don't think so. So, now we can mobilize these cards into our supporter deck if we wanted to. Oh wait, also, I also get a warrior in the officers. Officers are basically your action economy for the evening. There is to a degree, desire that you might have, a desire you might have to start dumping cards into training and filling up these officer boxes as much as you want, because you can have, in theory, unlimited officers. You don't want to do that. And there's a reason. As the Woodland Alliance, in total, you only get 10 tokens, 10 units for the entire game. So if, for example, you dump 6 of these into your officers, well, what are you going to recruit with all that, you know, military operation plan? The 2 warriors? Those are already going to be down on their own. So, don't do what I did when I first played the Woodland Alliance and go really heavy on training. You don't have unlimited soldiers. However, in this case, I personally would say it's a bit worthwhile to spend 1 of these cards to get an additional officer. And then I'm going to mobilize my last box card here. Put that into my supporter deck. And now we can start our military operations. We have 2 officers, so we get 2 actions. We can recruit, battle, organize, or move. In this case, I'm going to recruit, putting down a warrior at base. I'm going to recruit twice. So we get 3 warriors. A nice little basic revolt. And that's it for the Woodland Alliance. They are now on the board. They've started. We now draw a card, and because we have a wild card showing, we get an additional card. And now it's back to the Vagabond's turn. He's going to continue. I want to demonstrate quests now, if possible. So, on their turn, we're going to refresh 3 items, plus, because we have a T, 2 more items, so we can refresh everything. And now we are going to slip from here into... Do we want to slip? No, we don't want to slip. We're going to stay right where we are. First things first, we are going to spend our torch. We're going to exhaust it to explore this ruin, netting us a victory point and an additional sword. Not bad, not bad. Now we're going to spend one of these boots to move into this bunny district. And we are going to then do this quest here, the errand. We're going to spend a boot and a T to perform this errand, which then puts it right here. We get 1 point per completed quest. In this case, we've only completed 1 bunny quest, so we only get 1 point. And we get to draw 2 cards. We're going to flip over this hammer, because we're in a bunny clearing, spend this to get an additional boot. We now own all of the boots in the game. Wonderful. And now we are going to... We're going to just stay here, because there's another room to explore later. And you know what? Let's get a bit violent. I think this vagabond should be a violent person. I am going to exhaust one of my battles to go ahead and attack this vagabond, or this Marquise the Cat soldier. In a normal game, honestly, Marquise the Cat is one of the worst factions to piss off early game, because they own the entire board. Everywhere you go, you'll be spending additional boots, but we have 3 boots. We have plenty of boots to spend. Plus, it's a fun example. So, that was a 3 and a 2. So they deal 1 damage to us. We're going to go ahead and say this one sword is damaged. And then we deal 1 hit to them, because our hits are equal to undamaged swords. Actually, we can't do that. Or, no, we can, because we have just a undamaged but exhausted sword. So we'll deal 1 hit. That's enough to get rid of Marquise the Cat here.
Quick cut in again. Here I said that the clearing is now defenseless because I took out the warriors, and now we deal an extra hit destroying the building. I'm wrong. Defenseless is not retroactive. It is only when the clearing is already defenseless and there's buildings there, then you get the extra hit from defenseless. So just to quickly go over how defenseless works real fast. If you start a battle in a clearing with no warriors, but there are tokens or buildings, so on and so forth, they are defenseless, so you get an extra hit when attacked. And Marquise the Cat is now hostile. We will now score 1 point per hostile piece removed in battle. Doesn't have to be a warrior. So for example, that building would now, from now on, score us an extra victory point, along with any warrior piece that we destroy. We're very aggressive now. So, because also we completed that quest, we put down a new quest. A lot of quests are requiring us to have a crossbow, but I believe there's only 1 crossbow in the game, and it has to be crafted. We can do the logistics help if we head to a fox place, so we might want to come here and perhaps start fighting even more. Or we could say start moving around to here, where we're liked and there's less defense. But that's for the vagabond to do later, because he can't move in there. It's a hostile clearing. Alright, now we go to Evening's Rest.
we can't repair anything, we're going to draw 1 card. And discard if we have more than 5 cards. We do not. Remove items if we have too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're plenty fine. We can have 1 more item before we reach our max. And that is for the Vagabond's turn. I don't know if there's anything else I really need to show. I'm gonna actually continue until the Eerie Dynasty goes into turmoil to show you that aspect of the Eerie Dynasty. But honestly, I think we've shown just about everything of every faction. That aspect of the Eerie Dynasty will be the last thing we'll show real quick. So we'll go to Marquise de Catstern. They have both their sawmills. They get 2 wood. It gets wood even if it already has a piece of wood, I believe. I might be wrong about that. I don't think I am. So, we can take actions. Let's go ahead and let's free action build another workshop because that's something we're allowed to do because it costs 0 currently. We're going to build a workshop here. Sorry, it's not free action. It still takes an action, but it doesn't take any wood. Then we'll spend 1 wood. Go ahead and build a second workshop here. And then so we get 2 victory points. And then let's spend our last 2 wood getting another sawmill. Let's go ahead and draw 1 card. Alright. Next turn, these would be able to be crafted, which would be very good. That'd be a lot of victory points. Which, let's just go ahead and show that to start with. You don't basically use up crafting. So currently, if we went all the way around and went back to Marquise de Catstern so that they could craft during the start of daylight before they moved on to their second tier of daylight, they would be able to craft both of these because they have the same requirement. And that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 victory points. And they would get both of these. It would be a very, very big turn for them. And there would be no issue with that. That would be completely legal. But that's just to show it. They wouldn't be able to do that yet because, again, the craft comes before the rest of the actions, and they didn't have the workshops required for it yet. So, now, Eerie Dynasty. Their turn, once again. They need to put down a roost in a mouse district, or else they turmoil. Which means they're turmoiling. They can't avoid it. They have no way to move, attack, move. They have no items that they could craft to do it. They have nothing. They will go ahead and craft this tea though. Taking this item here and netting them 2 victory points. They will then go ahead and add this to battle because they want to deal as much as they can before they turmoil. And now they're going to start acting. They get 2 here. Then they're going to put down, let's say, 2 here. They're then going to move these guys with that bird move action into here. I'm going to go ahead and attack this massive Marquise de Cat land. And then move these guys into this clearing. And now battle. They will go ahead and battle first here. This is one of the first options for battling. They take 1 hit. They deal 2 hits because they had 2 tokens. And either way, this is defenseless, so it is destroyed. because they destroyed a non-warrior piece. They go up 1 in victory points. And now they're going to battle here. Marquise the Cat has anything. Oh, actually, sorry, I forgot to show something. They took out the token here. Marquise the Cat will say, get rid of this mouse dominance card to put that cat back up here. It's not something I've been doing in this example, but it is something that, as a Marquise the Cat player, you'll want to kind of stay up on. If you lose a piece, a cat warrior in a clearing that you have a matching card of, you can discard that card to put him back up at your keep. Which again, as you saw, because recruiting takes your whole action, and you only have 3 actions, that's very important to do, as to not start being behind on warriors. I slipped up, that's my mistake. Don't be like me. Here they have 3 tokens, so they go ahead and deal 2 hits because they get the lower number, and the Airy Dynasty deals 3. They have no fox cards, so they can't save any of these cats. They go ahead and clear out this whole place. This place is defenseless at the end of their attack, so they get 1 additional damage. They're going to destroy the recruiter and net themselves another victory point. But, oh no, build phase comes. They can't build because you cannot build in a clearing that already doesn't have a roost. You can only put, or that does have a roost, sorry. You can't put down 2 roosts in the same clearing. So instead, because they can't build, they turmoil. They are humiliated. They lose a victory point for every bird card in their decrees. 1, 2, 3, because of those 3 viziers. They discard every card in their decrees, except for their viziers. So they lose all of their action economy. They then flip their leader face down, and they choose another. Let's go with, because now there's all this fighting, let's go with the commander. He, into moving and battling, he is very aggressive, so every turn he will get a free move and battle thanks to his loyal viziers. And because he can't, because of his turmoil, he immediately ends daylight, he can't do anything else, and he immediately goes to his evening. He still gets the 2 victory points from his roosts, and he still draws 2 cards. Oh, there's the crossbow that the Vagabond wants. And that's how turmoil works for the Airy Dynasty. And that is every major mechanic of every faction. I don't think I really didn't show anything, aside from maybe the guerrilla warfare of the Woodland Alliance and also the organized mechanic of the Woodland Alliance. I'll show off that real quick. For example, 2 officers here on the Woodland Alliance's turn, after doing their whole turn, just pretend I did it, and we went on to the evening, they could say, move here. They move 1 person here, and immediately get rid of him for putting down a sympathy. Actually, couldn't do quite that. They would have to move up. Sorry. This one and this one. They have to move 2 up. And they could get rid of both to put down a sympathy. Cost 2. So essentially you just have a way of spreading sympathy without requiring so much on your supporters. But your supporters will always be there either way. But that is every core mechanic of the 5 factions. That is how they play. I hope, despite it being live and a bit on the rambly side, that this video helped give a more practical idea on how the game is played in actual motion. I love Root, and I would love to see more people playing it. I do hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to like, and if you want to see more content from me, please do drop a sub. If I made any mistakes that I didn't catch myself, do tell me in the comments. I'll pin a message with all the errors. Other than that, I'll see you with more Dice Dungeon later.
Bye bye.